Hi, I'm Amy and welcome to Girl Talk, the podcast to turn your salon conversations into signposting and support for you and your clients. I talk a lot, I know a lot of awesome people, and I'm really good at asking questions. So just think of me as an online directory of girl stuff that you can use to help you help others. So listen in, because it's time to talk, and psst, pass it on. Hello guys, and welcome to today's episode. I have been waiting to get this guest on for a little while since we met at an event last month, and Alex is here to give us an education that is absolutely needed in the current climate of where we are at. Since I interviewed Tommy a few months ago about his trans journey, this arena that Alex is going to talk to us about today has come up in questions directly to me so much. And Alex has been fantastic at giving me the opportunity to ask them lots of questions about it, to try and put aside some of the things that people are coming to me with so I can answer them. And I thought it would be the best opportunity to get them on the show so that we can put an entire episode together to educate as many people as we can get listening all around LGBTQ lives and anything to do with gender and all of those kind of topics of conversation that come up. So Alex is the founder of a company called Beyond the Binary, and he's doing some fantastic work in educating as far and wide as possible. So Alex, we were having a conversation before we came on about pronouns. So this was the first for me when we introduced somebody to talk about pronouns. So Alex uses the pronouns they and them. I use she and her. It's not something I've ever done before, but I know it is now something that's been rolled into companies and putting into email sign-offs and stuff like that, because it's really, really important that we start to get a better grip of the language that we use with one another so that people are comfortable and being spoken to the way that they want to be spoken to. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Time. I managed to do 2 whole minutes then of introducing what the hell we were talking about and what. It's like verbal diarrhea all over the introduction. But genuinely, I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation because I think it's very, very important. As a mum of 2 children, I think it's very, very important for their generation to be growing up in a world where we can have these conversations and that they can kind of explore who they want to be and be allowed to do that. So I will do anything that I can to get your message spread as far as we can so we can help as many people. So I really, really appreciate your time, Alex.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be in this space with you and be able to reach out to as many people as we can about this very relevant and needed information, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I would say to anybody that's listening is I really want you to stay with us for this one, because Alex has got so much knowledge, so much information. It's a lived experience for them that means that they can really talk to us about what it's like to live in this space, and also then to be educating in it. But your energy and I don't want to use the word maturity because that sounds like a really patronising word, but just the way that you put your information together and the way that you verbalise and articulate what you are talking about, it's just so worth listening to. And I think that you're going to be able to make such an impact, Alex, and I think that a lot of that is down to the person that you are and the way that you come across. So I really hope that people sit down and really pin their ears back to listen to this, because I know you've got a lot to say. So Alex, what I want you to do is I'm going to stop talking now because I have a bit of a habit of that. So I'm going to get you to tell me about your story and kind of how there's been a lot going on for you to get to the point that you are at right now. So take us back and tell us all about you and how you've got to here.
Yeah, of course. So from being younger, I have kind of always had this very flamboyant and very dramatic personality. anyway, I did musical theatre from the age of being about 5 up until I was about 14. I was invested in musical theatre. I absolutely loved it. I just loved being able to be on the stage and be able to be all these characters and be able to just embrace all of this musical and dancing and singing. It was just amazing. And I went into high school still with this flamboyant attitude. I didn't really give a care in the world, to be honest. I was just being me. And I went through high school, and as I started to go through high school at about 13, 14, the self-discovery of me and who I was and who I am started to kind of come to the surface. Questions of, what I wanted to do as a career, who I was as myself, my sexuality, my gender. All of these questions start to come up, along with going through puberty and the hormones being everywhere, and and relationships and friendships. And it was a struggle navigating it. It was a struggle being able to figure things out. And kind of got to a stage of about 14, 15 where I was like, yeah, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. And I, was so happy that I found this part of me. And you stand on it, you almost feel like you're going to stand on a podium and shout it from the rooftops, like, I'm gay, I'm gay. And I told my friends, I came out in school, and that was kind of where my journey became more difficult for me. I started to be bullied in high school by the years above me. I ended up in some really bad situations in high school where I was confronted by homophobia, I was confronted by physical aggression by other students. And it was just a very difficult period of time, because I had realised this part of me and I was sharing it with everybody, and it kind of had a backlash. And that kind of carried on through high school, and speaking to the teachers that were in the school about it, because I became really aggressive. I became, quite confrontational with students, with my family, with staff members, and they basically just called me a naughty kid. And it was because of all these things I was trying to navigate, I was trying to understand, and going and reaching out to the teachers, and they had no understanding. They had no clue of how to give me the support. And then, going through the process and assessments and stuff of ADHD as well, it was kind of a collaboration of everything, and not fully kind of being given the support of what I should have been given as a young person in high school. And some of the teachers that I would speak to, they would just palm me off. They'd just say, "Oh, like, we'll move you down to a lower set," and I'm like, that has got nothing to do with my sexuality. That's got nothing to do with my expression of self. You're basically trying to put it on my academic levels. And some of the teachers were saying, I wouldn't amount to anything and they basically all put it down to behaviour. But I got through high school, I smashed my GCSEs out, ended up coming out with really good grades, and I basically, told the teachers where to go when it came to results day. And I went to college with this whole new idea of college is going to be awesome. I'm going to go to college, I'm going to do musical theatre, and I'm going to become a famous star, and I can kind of tell everybody to do one. And it just had the complete opposite effect. Continued to be coming up against barriers in college. I was diagnosed with dyslexia, I was dyscalculia, Earlham syndrome, and they just diagnosed me with all of these things, and I was like, they gave me a diagnostic but didn't give me the support of it. And then again, going through, still kind of figuring out my sexuality, still having questions about my gender identity, but having no idea what it actually meant. So I ended up dropping out of college because I just couldn't regulate myself. Went into work environment from about 17 years old, 17, 18, and not really being able to access work a lot because of the support that I needed as a young adult. And the workforces like the HR department, recruitment department, they couldn't give me anything. They couldn't give me any support. So I really struggled with accessing work. And with all of these things, all of these barriers that I felt like I was facing, I ended up going down a very dark route of then, using cannabis, using cocaine, and kind of numbed myself to a lot of things because I genuinely couldn't manage myself. I just was super aggressive all the time, super defensive, didn't know how to respond in conversation, would make myself feel really rigid and awkward. And I just kind of numbed myself, with alcohol and substances for a good few years to a point that I hit where I was arrested. I then, had to appear in court and had to kind of justify my actions to a court. And, that even then they couldn't understand what I was kind of coming to. And I remember being stood in the court and the judge who I was appearing in front of, I read my statement. My manager at the time read a statement on behalf of their company and whatnot. And the judge just said, there is something that needs to change in your life because you are a good person. So I want to help you get there. I want to help you get to where you need to be. But, however, you are here because you have committed crimes. You've done this, but I want to help you. So the court basically said, you can do this, this, and this. And at the time in my life, I was very arrogant. I didn't believe that I should be there. Sat in victim mentality, 100%. I didn't believe that I should be there. And he said to me, right, you've got these options. So I went through these options and he said rehabilitation, and I thought that'll be super easy. I can just sit in a room and somebody can talk to me and I can ignore them, but as long as I get through the process, I'm not really that bothered. That was my attitude at the time. So I went to rehabilitation for 3 weeks and my life changed massively when I went through that. Being able to speak to people, the support that I was given, and being able to just have so much information of mind management, of self-regulation, of being aware of your thoughts and your feelings, and being able to be given this toolbox essentially of this is how you can manage these things. And from that situation, I then started my journey of kind of self-discovery even more, and I started to come to a lot of realization, these breakthroughs, these wow, this is why I was feeling this way, and that's why I was dealing with that in this way. And I started a meditation, so I'm a meditation and breathwork practitioner as well. So I really got invested in my mental well-being, reading, giving my mind a lot of knowledge. And then from there, from opening my mind up to a whole range of things, I realised my gender identity that I've been struggling with for 15 years or so. And I was able to embrace my gender identity of being non-binary and be so fluid in my sexuality and be able to actually look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what, I really love you and you are an absolute awesome person, even though you've been through all of these kind of situations. And that's kind of what led me into what I do now with Beyond the Binary, because I'm so passionate about it. I'm so passionate about people and humans just being able to live in their complete authentic selves and be able to go into the world without feeling like they're going to be judged or fear of abuse or discrimination. I really do sit with this very strongly, and where I go and speak to colleges, I speak to schools and companies and individuals about how people can bring more inclusivity to their workplace, to their school, for the benefit of the young people, for the benefit of the adults that might still be questioning it. Because this journey of mine didn't just stop in high school and go, yay, I found my rainbow flag, or I found this. It didn't stop there. It literally continued until I was 25. And that is a long period of time, and having to navigate myself in quite negative ways. That's where I want to be a cycle breaker, and I want to stop that from happening for younger people. I want them to be able to be able to express themselves now in their younger years, so when they get to adolescent, when they get to being, where they want to be, either career or personally or whatever it might be, they can sit with themselves and go, yes, I was able to establish myself, and I was able to do this freely, and I was able to have this very smooth transition without coming up against barriers. Because, teenagers and young children, they're dealing with a hell of a lot of stuff on top of trying to figure themselves out, and they should be able to navigate themselves in a positive way with support from family, from friends, and even just be able to sit with themselves and go, you know what, this is okay. And that should be a running line, that it is okay to be themselves. They don't have to say anything else other than I'm okay being myself. And that's kind of where I'm at the minute. I'm kind of living a life of authenticity, I would say. I'm really kind of sitting with my purpose, and I'm being able to speak about the things that I'm very passionate about and I have a lot of love for. So yeah, that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. I could probably carry on going.
Well, I feel that there's going to be a book at some point in the not too distant future from you, Alex, because there's so much to your story.
Yeah.
I was writing notes down like all the way through of things to ask. I mean, one of the things that jumped out to me, I'm not sure if we've had this in our conversations, but my previous life was I was a police officer. I joined when I was 19. And
Yeah.
it's very unusual to hear that the criminal justice system is the actual point where
Yeah.
the help that you needed is the place that's the place that it came from.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
makes me really sad at how like let down you have been through school and college and even work, like it took you getting to that point where you had to be in a court with a judge before somebody could steer you in the right direction. But I understand our journeys are all there for, we do these things for a reason. It's to bring you
Yeah.
guys to have that story, which
Yeah.
time is very
I do believe, and I speak very openly about my arrest, because it's a part of me.
yeah.
Many people are like, oh, I don't really want to talk about that. Even like getting speeding points, you're like, oh yeah, I had to attend this course, and at the end of the day, like, I was in a very dark place,
Mhm.
on an extension of it. Like, I was in an abusive relationship. I was having such a bad
Yeah.
time. And when I think about the system, when I think about the system, then I was annoyed at the police because why are you arresting me? Da, 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 da. But when I think about it now, I'm so incredibly grateful for that. For that arrest, I actually hold gratitude for me being arrested, because if I hadn't have been arrested, where would I potentially
Yeah.
be now?
Yeah.
And in the jobs that I've done, from there, and the job that I was doing at the time, I work with young people who have emotional and behavioural traumas, and I work with the police. I work in agency with the police, and I have a lot of respect for them. And when I speak to police officers about what I do and the kind of persona that I want to give, they are extremely supportive of it,
Yeah.
and what they want the training, they want the support.
Yeah.
So that is, like, hopefully will be an extension of
What the work that you
my
do.
yeah, and be able to
And
give them the awareness and the understanding of it too.
I think that it just, I mean, I've got loads of questions to go over with you, and I think it's really a good time for us to talk about school after that's obviously been such a big feature for you, and it's a big part of where you concentrate your time and effort as well.
Yeah.
So the thing that's really that is sad and frustrating in the situation, like in your story, is that you were obviously trying to find your way with things and had identified that some of that may have been to do with your sexuality, got to a point where you were comfortable enough to say that out loud, and what came from that was then a barrage of bullying and abuse and nastiness. So I think that in itself is a massive reason why these conversations have got to be very open at school. I mean, we're talking senior school age here, and we'll come to primary school stuff in a minute. But the senior school setting and situation, when we were talking before, when I very first met you, you were giving me some stats about. You were talking to me about some legislation, I think that had been done a couple of years ago, telling us about this kind of education in schools, and then about the level of it that's actually has achieved it. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
So the Department of Education passed part of legislation which was saying that LGBTQIA plus matters and awareness it's compulsory in schools from September 2020, that it has to be taught in schools. It's part of the P&D, which is like personal development and like citizenship and, and all that sort of stuff. Schools call it different topics, but that had to be a part of the curriculum for the school to be able to be given the information and knowledge of this community, to be able to help young people navigate themselves and give them the knowledge of, okay, so what if I'm feeling like this? However, this is still a barrier within high schools. Part of the research that I do is I read Ofsted reports, I read curriculums that schools offer, and when I read the curriculums and when I read the Ofsted reports, there's still information on there that just does not make sense to me, when this information is compulsory. Like, if you can Google it, you can look it up, it is super compulsory that this is taught. And when I have spoken with SLT members of staff, or if I've spoken to teachers or whatever, they will come back and say, yeah, but we're doing this. So say, for instance, they're running an LGBTQIA support group. And I'm like, okay, that's absolutely amazing. What do you do with this group? And that's where
running that. Let me tell you what actually happens in that group. Have you got the gay teacher to run it? Is that what's going on?
Because do you know what? Do you know what, Amy? That is literally what they do. If they have a teacher that identifies within the community, right, perfect. Let's put them to run this group, and even like I'm in conversations with a school at the moment, and the person I'm speaking to is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, full of energy, and the only reason that they are working with this is because they are lesbian. And I was like, okay, so are you happy with this? And they're like, to be honest with you, because I have such a good work relationship with them, they were like, I actually have no idea how to do this. Yeah. And I'm like, that's very, very interesting. And, when I look at statistics, which again is all what we were speaking about when I seen you, is 17%. So a survey was done across the UK in all different high schools, and it's under, I think the statistic is under Young Minds, and this statistic was taken from 2021. 17% of teachers have only been given this training. So 17% of teachers only have this training. The rest have not. They're completely unequipped to either teach it or to discuss matters around it because they don't have the information. that is significantly low. And when you look at when you compare it to statistics of, so say for instance, there's 56% of students in high schools identify as LGBTQIA plus.
56%.
56%.
That's
Yeah,
a lot,
this
isn't
is
it?
obviously it's on a scale of
Yeah,
UK schools.
yeah,
So you're talking a very large percentage within one school for young people to identify as LGBT.
yeah. And that's the ones
And
that are either A, happy to identify as it, as in they're
yeah,
ready to talk about it. B, have figured it out that that's
yeah,
what's going on. So actually, that there's room for that stat to be even bigger than that, isn't there?
yeah. And like if you think about it, so some of these statistics that I've read, because obviously surveys are only done in a certain period of time, we're only talking maybe like with in a margin of like 1 to 4 years.
Yeah,
So if you think now, say for instance, like 12 months on, there's going to be more
yeah.
people that are identifying within this community.
So one of the things that has been presented to me from people is that this situation with schools, for them to know, for them to get statistics like that, for there to be so many teenagers that are identifying within the LGBTQ plus A. Yeah,
Yeah,
I apologise. I'm
it's
trying to
okay.
get my mouth around it, right? But there's always so much backlash from, well, if schools are going to talk about it, then are they just presenting, they're just giving the children an option, for something that wasn't even a thing. And this wasn't a thing 20 years ago. So why is it now so popular? And, there's a group, one of my friends has got a younger cousin, a teenage cousin, and she's in a group of like five, and four of the five children are all identifying as non-binary. And
Yeah.
so then it's like, well, they're just being fashionable and following each other, and
Mm.
it's almost like people think that because it's being talked about more openly, that therefore it's an extra choice, it's an extra fashion trend, it's just something
Hmm.
that they're doing because their mates are doing it. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about that kind of idea, and about the fact that it wasn't here before and whatever? Because I've got my own thoughts about it, but I'm interested
Yeah.
to.
If you look at say history of it, if you go back to like the 60s, like it was still a thing in the 60s. Obviously there was a lot of criminalization around it, and then it kind of that was abolished, and then Margaret Thatcher, the fantastic lady, came in and gave legislation around and put an act in place that it was again against the law, and it was inhumanizing children's morals and views and all this sort of stuff. So it has been around for a long period of time. However, I think over, like you say, over the last 20, like 10 or 20 years, it is becoming more spoken about, and it's becoming more of a conversation that is being highlighted within the younger generation. And it's, through social media, there's a lot more kind of queer books out there. There's more like queer celebrities, and and they're in the eye of the people, in the eye of the public. And social media now is huge. Like, we work on social media, we use social media actively for our businesses. So, and young people being able to get on smartphones now, and being able to get on these social media accounts, they're able to kind of see it more, rather than say when I was in high school and I had a Nokia phone, and the only thing that I could do was play Snake. You look at things like that, and to now there is a lot more access of information. And when people say that it's a fashion trend, that's where I go, oh, and it makes my body tense up a bit, because I'm like, no, let's not use that terminology of it being a fashion trend, because it almost puts like a negative spin on it, and it makes it come across like it, oh well, it's fashion, so they'll get over it next week.
Mhm.
And I hate it when people say it's a phase, like that quote, it's a phase. my parents used to use that to me all the time, and and people would be like, oh yeah, well, and then when I was going through the social transition of non-binary, people were saying, well, maybe you're just transgender, and it's things like that. It's the knowledge of, just letting people be. And with young people, like when you think about it from a child development aspect, and when you think about it from, like I say, like what I mentioned before, like a puberty side of things, and like hormones, and like they find like the sex drive, and they find their who they're attracted to, and they want to invest in relationships, and all that, all this sort of thing that, like, me and you went through. It's still happening now. It's not changing. But I think the approach of how we are when it comes to this now changes slightly, because there are so many fluid ways that people can kind of, well, like young people and adults, but if we're just touching on young people, how young people express themselves, like if you look at the fashion industry now, like clothing is becoming less gendered. It's becoming, you can wear that and you can wear this, and it doesn't really matter how you wear it, just whatever you feel comfortable to wear it in. And I think that is an element that feeds into how people express themselves.
Yeah.
Like I have always wore predominantly, masculine clothing. That has just been me, and I've never really felt comfortable in, say, feminine
You can't even say the
feminine
word.
I know feminine clothing. And it's kind of, that is just my expression. That
Yeah.
is just like how I express my energies. That's how I express my gender. And I think when the topic around young people is being put on, it's a fashion accessory, or it's I'm just following suit. Sometimes it's, if one person says it, yeah, it can be oh yeah, then another person says it, another person says it. But if they're within a friendship group, or if they're seeing somebody of their age being able to come out and say, yes, I am non-binary, yes, I am a lesbian, yes, I am gay, yes, I am pansexual, all of these expressions, all of these identities,
Mm-hmm.
it might be a way of, right, I feel like I have people that can support me to be able to be
Yeah.
myself. A lot of young people are like question themselves, and I think as a parent, or as a guardian, as a carer to a young person that might be kind of trying to navigate this, I think it is just allowing it, instead of trying to say, oh, it might be this, or it might
Yeah.
be that, or it could be this and it could be that. It's just allowing it to happen, because if one way or another it's going to happen. Now, would you rather it happen in a negative way, or would you rather it happen in a positive
Yeah.
way? And I think from that, it's weighing up where you would like their mental well-being
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
lie, and where you would like their gender identity well-being to
Yeah.
lie, because it is a crucial aspect
Yeah.
of who you are,
Uh,
and your identity. And I think, especially in schools, like this is a big thing with me at the minute, that this needs to be educated to the students and to the staff,
yeah.
because even staff don't have the right information.
I
And
think that it's really what's the word? I think it actually is just quite indicative of how little understanding there is of it, when the way that a lot of the schools are choosing to handle it is, who's the gay teacher? Let's put you in
yes,
charge of the support group. Because actually,
yeah,
we've just talked about that journey that you personally have been on. Just because this teacher may well have just been like, yeah, I'm gay, that's what happens, and my parents are fine about it, my friends are fine about it, and I've lived like that my whole life.
yeah,
And actually not necessarily have been through some of the processes, the thoughts, the
mm,
feelings, the anger, the bullying, all of that. you've got to be, there's got to be so much more to it. It's not just about, well, they're in the community, so therefore they can run the group. So I think the fact that that's how a lot of the experience that you're coming up against with schools is just indicative of actually how much they're not realizing that this is
Yeah.
a thing. And
It's like it's like reading Ofsted reports. So
yeah,
obviously, one of the biggest legislation that I kind of refer to with my work is the Equality and Diversity Act
yeah,
2010, because on there are protected characteristics, and this is a protected characteristic. You know, being able to be, with your sexuality, with your gender identity, it's protected. And when I read Ofsted reports and I read the curriculums, there is a lot of things on the curriculum about like religion and race and
mhm,
culture, like other
yeah,
cultures, and it's spoken about in depth. Like, say for instance, the Holocaust is spoken about, Black Lives Matter is spoken about, all things very, very crucial to be spoken about. But then this community isn't,
yeah.
and it's not spoken about because the teachers, it's a taboo. It's a we'll brush it under the carpet. We'll just get through these 5 years with this
Yeah.
class, and then they can go, and then they're not our problem anymore.
And I wonder if it was part of Ofsted's, if a part of Ofsted's grading for the school was how happy and fulfilled and authentic the children felt they were able to be. If that was part of Ofsted's grading, then they'd be absolutely scrambling to get
Oh yeah,
on the curriculum
for
because
sure.
you know
Like,
that's what
there
everything
was
goes on.
a yeah, and there was a case study that was done in 2020 with a school, which obviously I'm not going to be naming, but the school c- completely resisted against this and said that it was inappropriate to discuss it. And they said this to their Ofsted inspector, and the Ofsted report and the case study that was done around it. This school now is part of the Department of Education. It's a case study that is now shared out to other people, and they've come up against so many barriers to being able to be registered now as an independent school, because they are not allowing this protected characteristic. They are not following the Equality and Diversity Act because of their own
Yeah,
thoughts and feelings about it, and that has put that school into a lot of like dispute, sorry,
yeah.
dispute, of whether they should be able to
But
register themselves as
ultimately, the
as
schools are there
schools.
to they're there, and part of their role is like within sort of safeguarding and looking after the children and their
Mm,
welfare and that. And if they're not prepared to acknowledge that for 54%, if that's what you said, of their students will be falling into this category
yeah,
that needs looking after in and being able to express themselves properly, then
yeah,
they're falling down on being able to provide that welfare and stuff, aren't they? So
yeah, of
what do you
course,
think the
yeah,
resistance is, Alex? What do you think the resistance is to people like just not wanting to hear about it, not wanting to talk about it, feeling like it's inappropriate? Because they'll teach sex education. I don't
yeah,
really understand how you can teach the fundamentals of how you make a baby
mm,
in sex education that ignores any other alternatives other than a man and a woman having sex.
yeah,
You can teach that basic stuff, but that they do more than that in senior school. Like they talk like how do you even have a proper sex education lesson without actually talking about the different things
yeah,
that go on? Do you know what I mean? It
yeah.
doesn't even make
I think,
ignoring.
um how can I put this? So it's kind of with the teachers, I think it is fear. It is fear of getting it wrong.
Yeah,
And the teachers of, so the SLT, or their kind of finance departments or whatever it might be, I think they don't want to invest in it because they believe that it's just something that should just be a tick box exercise. And that's where that culture needs to change
yeah,
within companies as
yeah.
well.
See it as
Within companies and within SLT kind of leadership of a school. that even it's like saying to a teacher, we need safeguarding training. Okay, then we're going to get everybody on safeguarding training because it's necessary. So why do we not need inclusion training? If you don't know how to teach something, then you need the information, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's being when I work with schools about this, I speak with the teachers, and they will quite openly say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to teach it. And when I've got a young person that comes to me and is telling me that they are questioning their sexuality, or they're struggling with navigating it, I don't know what to say. And that's really sad, from the aspect of that they should be able to give some sort of information, or be able to signpost them in the right place to gain that information. And I think when they're like what you're saying, they can teach sex education, so it's not so much of a, it's not like we don't, it's not inappropriate. But I think when people say it's inappropriate, I think what we touched on before is that they don't want to put it into their minds, because they want it to, they don't want them to figure that out. Does that make sense?
It 100% makes sense. And I'd be interested to know somebody to do a survey and conduct some research around how a school that educates and is open around this topic, how that affects their behavioural issues and things like that. Because like you said, the children at that age have got so much pressure on, with exams and hormones and all of these other things that are going on. And you said yourself, for you, your reaction was to get angry, to be aggressive, to be a disruptive, to a point where it escalated to being involved with the police. And I wonder if they actually looked at it properly. Because, and I think your point about it being really accessible online and all the other places that they go, actually, if you imagine from a person, you don't need to imagine this because obviously it's something, but in anyone that's listening that just struggles to get this in their head, I feel like if you are a person who is trying to navigate your sexuality, your gender, whatever, and you're seeing different types of people in the public eye, the famous people and whatever, who are doing it, but then you go to school and the only thing they're prepared to talk about is a male-female relationship option, whatever. That is just going to really turn you in on yourself, isn't it? It's going to, so it's not, there's no hiding from it. Nobody's planting these things, but by school being more open and talking about it and making it somewhere where they feel supported and somewhere that they can be themselves. Actually, I imagine it would have a real massive effect on the results that they get, because it's not something that's hindering them from studying properly. If you want to go from an Ofsted point of view, that they can score better as a school, the behavioural problems will probably improve. So actually, it just really is burying your head in the sand on a you can only stay in there for so long, really.
Oh, for sure. And the more that they bury their head in the sand, the worse it's going to get. Rather than it just being, oh, right, okay. But it's taking accountability for themselves and taking accountability for the students. And going, this is an issue. And, giving the young people this knowledge and giving our staff this knowledge, you almost bring like a whole new level of support and awareness at that school itself. So it's just like, to me, like when I was going through high school and I didn't have anybody to kind of speak to about it, I felt very shamed of who I was and very embarrassed, and because nobody wanted to talk to me about it. So I thought that at one point I thought that like I wasn't normal, and I say normal lightly. This is how I felt when I was 14. I felt like I was, why do I not feel like the other girls in my why do I not want to wear a skirt, and why do I want to wear trousers? And because nobody would speak to me about, like part of the my journey at school, I got suspended because I wore a pair of trousers at school. And, you think about that, and like I got suspended from school for wearing a pair of trousers. It sounds bizarre, but it still happens now. Like young people are still being picked up on their uniform in school, or
Yeah.
the length of their hair, or whatever it might be, the style that they want to wear their hair. And I think, well, that is their expression,
Yeah.
and well, obviously I've spoke to you about like something that I discuss with schools, and it is like the gender spectrum. That is part of their gender spectrum, and they should just be able to express themselves how they
Yeah.
feel inside,
Yeah.
just because they see a certain way in physical appearance,
Yeah.
and we should never judge people from physical appearance either. But just because, to a close-minded set of individuals, just because they look a certain way doesn't mean that they have to express themselves in a way
Yeah.
that matches what you feel
Yeah.
that they should do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing is, we could go on. I could go to town on this thing with school, but there's so much other stuff that I want to ask you.
Yeah, go, yeah.
You've just touched on the gender spectrum there, but I think before we explain that, I think it would be a really good time to talk to me about the different categories that form this community that we're talking about, because it's grown. Like when
Yeah,
when I was in the police, it was LGBT. That was what it
yeah.
was. And now, as time's going on, there's like extra letters being added into that, and a plus, which obviously encompasses a lot of stuff. So let's just, I mean, we don't have to, I mean, I know there's a lot of different stuff, but give me
Yeah, of
an
course.
overview of like what they are, and so that it will help us to understand the gender spectrum a little bit more, because I think we need to understand that first before we talk.
Yeah, of course.
So tell me
Well, I
about.
just wanted to obviously just touch on very quickly. So you have sexuality and you have gender. They are completely two different things, okay? So sexuality is, what you're attracted to, what you would see in an individual, let's say. And then you've got gender is what you feel internally, what you feel in your mind, in your body is your gender identity. Yeah.
Yep.
So just so we've kind of got a bit of a
Yep.
scope on that for people that are like listening. And then so you've got LGBTQIA plus.
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously we've got L, which is lesbian, we've got gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and you've got asexual, and then we've got plus on the end, which is for any other people that are part of this community.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So questioning being, I'm in that phase
Questioning.
of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, questioning who they are.
Intersecting, is that what you said?
Intersex.
Intersex, sorry. See,
It's alright.
I needed to read this before I came on the interview.
That's okay.
So tell me what that means.
So intersex is where somebody has neither female or male autonomy, like genitals. So it can't be. I'm trying to put this. So it can't be identified as female or male
Yeah.
genitals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then asexual.
So asexual is somebody that doesn't have any sex drive, any kind of desire to be intimate with somebody.
Okay. And those, so that asexual and intersex, they have been like, and questioning have been added in as time's gone on. Why do they get added? Like what? Like, because in why does it keep growing like that?
I think it's just to bring more inclusivity to the community itself. To be honest, obviously with the questioning, like people like will use questioning or queer. It doesn't. That's just kind of
Yeah.
preference, really, of what they want to kind of use. And I think with the question is because people who are questioning are still valid, like they're still being seen,
Mhm.
and that was kind of the idea of it, really. And obviously with intersex, that was added on there to make sure people that are, with their identity of not having, the biological aspects of male or female genitals, that they were also being seen as well, as part of the community. And then obviously the A and the plus, it's just more inclusivity, because like you said before, this community is growing, and it's growing bigger, and it's getting
Yeah,
wider, and more people are finding different ways of expressing themselves,
yeah,
through fluidity. And I think it is just being able to have everyone be able to be seen for who they are, and recognition for them being who they are as well.
yeah. And I think that is was a real eye opener for me. My brother, I've got twin brothers, and both of them are gay,
Mm.
which is always a conversation. You bring that into a conversation, and are they identical? Do you think that was? I always comes up with loads of questions. But my one of my brothers is really good at explaining this sort of stuff. So uh, I know that you identify as non-binary, which means
Yeah,
you don't identify as male or female, just
yeah,
as a neutral. It's a bit of a neutral space,
yeah,
how I understand it. And my brother was explaining to me about exactly what you've just said there about the fact that people just need to feel that they belong somewhere, and so
yeah,
actually this extension of the categories and and allowing an area that is just
yeah,
neutral, where you don't
yeah,
feel like you're that side or that side.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just need, actually is a massive thing for somebody that is going through those feelings to be able to say, actually, this is where I sit. And so
yeah,
the fact that that was for me, that was a really useful conversation, that he explains it like that, because
yeah,
when you haven't been through any of this, I was born a female. I am straight. I've always kind of just been on a path of wanting a 2.4 children kind of life
yeah,
with my husband and whatever. So this doesn't. It's not in my life. It's not
yeah,
decisions I've ever had to consider, think about, or whatever. So sometimes when that's the path that I've been on, and for obviously a lot of other people,
hmm,
it's really difficult to kind of put yourself into somebody else's shoes and understand, well, why can't you just pick one or the other, or
yeah,
what does that even mean? Like, but the conclusion that I've come to on it all is, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't
no,
matter whether I understand it, or whether my head can understand it, or whether it's basically, none of my feelings on the situation matter. I mean, I don't have
mm,
any feelings on it, other than the fact that I just need a little bit of
yeah.
time to process how you may have had to get to that place, but
Yeah.
it's nothing to do with me. And I mean, you
I
listen.
think that's it though. Like, people just need to get out of their own way when it comes to this, and
Yeah,
you might not understand it. Potentially you won't understand it ever, but it's being respectful towards it,
exactly the
and
point.
it's having the knowledge around it,
Yeah,
being respectful towards it, and then just getting out of your own way and letting people
yeah.
crack on with their
I
lives.
feel that sometimes, like, so when non-binary was introduced to me, as in that I knew somebody that's how they identified. I did go and
Hmm.
speak to my brother about it, and luckily, like, he's really good at talking to me about it,
Yeah.
because I just wanted to understand it a little bit more. So I've obviously just said how he helped me do that. And there was a point, yeah. So, but the point being that my choice was to go and learn and listen, and then and appreciate that, it's like I just said, it's nothing to do with me. But I think that
Yeah.
sometimes what people's reaction is, well, that's not that doesn't make sense to me. That's not
Mm.
how it's supposed to be. So therefore, I'm just gonna keep butting my head with that and just make
Yeah.
it a problem. And I think you've definitely got two choices. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of,
You definitely have, and and whoever's listening to this, who kind of needs to hear this, or who has somebody in their life that is questioning or is identifying as part of this community and doesn't know how to navigate it, the only thing that I can say is give yourself the knowledge, give yourself the space,
Yeah.
and give them the respect that they deserve.
Respect is
And
the important one.
yeah, and it's allowing people to navigate themselves freely and the with the love that they can get from people, because it is a difficult journey to
Yeah.
navigate around, and not being able to have people there with you makes it 10 times harder. So if you don't understand it, which is fine, because you might never understand it, because you might not be feeling the same
Yeah.
way, and but it's giving the person that time, that space, and that respect to allow them to get to where they need to be, and just getting out of your own way. People fear the unknown, and I get that, because I fear the unknown. Like, I get scared and get uncertain about things. However, what I do is I get out of my own way. I sit with these feelings, but allowing that space. Allowing people to take up space for who they are, because that's the thing. That's the greatest power that you can give someone.
Yeah.
For them to take up space for
Mhm.
exactly who they want, who they
Yeah.
are. You know.
How have your parents been with you about over these sort of 15 years of trying to figure out what's going on? Have they spoken honestly with you, or have you had conversations, not about about who you are, but about how
Mm.
they have like felt from a parent point of view? Do you talk about that?
Yeah, so when I came out as being a lesbian when I was like 14, my mum used the line, "It's a phase," and she kind of stayed clear of it. My dad thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, because he was like, proper. My dad's a very kind of old school cis het man, and he's just like,
Yeah.
super masculine and all that sort of stuff, and he was loving it. But with my sister was kind of, we didn't really have conversation about it.
Yeah.
But as time went on, and as I continued to be in relationships with cis women,
Yeah.
my mum was, giving herself, she would, little droplets of information, little droplets of knowledge that she was kind of seeking from places, from
Yeah.
people. And then as I've kind of grown up, and she can see how happy I am being who I want to be, or, who I am. And, she can see how much I express myself in my identity. She's kind of, accepted it, and
Yeah.
we have a good relationship. And when I came out as being non-binary, again, it was like, I don't understand this. So I sat with my mum, and probably over the last couple of months, my mum has really invested time in to finding out what it is, and expanding her mind on this community, and expanding her mind on the things that I could potentially be
Yeah.
struggling with, which I do. And her respect towards me has become so much more balanced, and it's having conversation, it's communicating. My
Yeah.
mum asks me questions, I tell her the answer. I tell my mum something, she answers back. And I think, just as we go backwards and forwards in conversation, and my mum just being more open-minded to it. Like, don't get me wrong, like, some things that I talk to her about, she's like, "Oh, I don't really want to talk about that right now." And I'm like, "All right, okay, then that's fine." And then we go back to
Yeah.
the conversation again, and we sit down, we research stuff.
Yeah.
I've given her a shitload of books to read. So, and she kind of takes that in her stride, and it's allowing her space as well
Yeah.
to navigate it. And then when she's ready to kind of talk about it, we talk about it. And when I'm ready to talk about things, we talk about it. So, it's patience,
Yeah.
it's a time, it's a journey that you go on, even as somebody that isn't kind of coming out or going through it's somebody that might be close to you, like a young person or a family member or friends or whatever it might be. It's also giving yourself time and just going, right, I don't understand this right now, but I'm going to take the time to
Yeah.
understand it. And I think that's important as well.
I just find it interesting because obviously I said to you right at the beginning, a lot of my motivation for wanting these conversations is because I am a parent, and mine and my husband's kind of only real goal in life is for the kids to be happy, like really
Yeah.
happy. And like you've said about being able to be authentic, finding their
Mm.
passion in life and kind of allowing them to just be what they want to be.
Yeah.
And but I know that part of the difficulty I would find as a parent if one of them was going through some of the things that you've talked about is the fact that I know that that is a struggle for them.
Mm.
And I do everything I can with a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old to basically protect them from having to
Yeah.
have sadness and things like that. And it's hard as a parent to even think about them having to go through that. Like, I know when I was
Yeah.
listening to you talking about what you had to deal with as a teenager, like I'm a massive empath, so I really
Yeah.
feel people's pain, and it's really hard to listen to. And I don't ever want my kids to have to go through that
No.
kind of pain. Do you know what I mean? So for me, that's one of the reasons that as a parent, I would not want them to have to go through any of this. But
Mm.
knowing that there are people doing what you're doing and making the world understand it better and having the conversations and being understanding that it has to come from conversations and
Yeah.
education before you're putting yourself in the place to do that
Yeah.
means that if that as they get older and their sexuality or their gender or whatever becomes something that they need to explore,
Mm.
then I feel more hopeful that there will be the right support around them to be able to do that. And but
Yeah.
I know as a parent, it would be, if you have a child that realizes that they've been born in the wrong body, they're not in that, they don't feel that
Yeah.
gender is right. When we're having a baby, we always talk about, are you having a boy or a girl?
Yeah.
And you get excited about which one you might have and the things you might do with them. So I can understand from a parent's point of view, like if your child goes through that you're kind of having to let that go yourself. So it's almost like
Yeah.
a bit of a grieving process, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
the way you and your mum are handling it, we've been so open with your conversations, and even her saying, like, Alex, I can't have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's nice to hear, because at least, because those conversations could very quickly turn into rows and
Yeah.
something disruptive for you both if you're not
Yeah.
able to say, let's not do this now, let's do it when I'm in a better headspace. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's really,
Like, don't get me wrong, like, it takes in time. It has taken time.
yeah,
Like, with my mum has had to kind of grieve who I was before and accept who I am now. And, because the Alex is my name. I have a legal name
yeah,
as well. So my mum has had to kind of let go of
yeah,
that name
yeah,
and embrace Alex. And at first my mum was like, I don't understand why you need to change your name, why, and sitting and explain like that feels like me. Like, Alex, I wanted to be called from when I was 14 years old, and I asked my mum this when I was 14 years old, and I didn't understand why, but that's what I wanted to do.
yeah,
And when I think about it now, I was like, I know that you've always wanted to be called Alex, and she is still on that journey of letting it go, and my dad is still on that journey of letting that person go and grieve that person. But at the end of the day, the end goal is the happiness of that person, the happiness
yeah,
of who they are authentically in
yeah,
themselves. And what we've got to step away from is putting unnecessary barriers in place for them to do that, because it's only going to have more of a detrimental
yeah,
effect on them. That's all it's going to do. It's going to send them down a dark path of mental well-being.
yeah,
They're going to become isolated. They're going to feel, they're not going to be able to feel like they want to feel,
yeah,
and that's, and they're reaching full potential and being
yeah,
able to reach who they want, what their purpose is
yeah,
in life, And I think as a societal, like, kind of umbrella,
yeah,
the more people that open their mind, the more people that step out of this cycle of what we're in at the moment, the more impact it's going to have for the greater good of generations to come, for the young people, for your children that, you know, are going to be going to high school soon, or are going to be heading down that road of when they get to the point of going to work. I'm talking years in advance, but you want them to be in a society that they can be themselves in without 100%. Being scared of being themselves,
150%. And, you know, if I understand, or I can, you know, appreciate where your mum and dad are coming from and what they've been having to process themselves.
Yeah.
However, if you were mine, I would be extremely proud of the kid that I've got, because I think you're amazing. I think you've done
you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you.
We're talking about high school, right? But I want to touch on younger than high school.
Okay.
I've seen loads of things before about like children who are 3 who want to like change their gender, and through high school, there's children at my son's school who are identifying as the different gender to what they were born as, and obviously at that age when and I think this is important because you mentioned it earlier, that gender and sexuality are really different things. So obviously in primary school they don't touch on sex and things like that until like last year. These children are in much younger years and on identifying as a different gender. What's your experience of that scenario with, when is it too early to talk to children about gender, letting them express themselves in a different gender? Like, talk to me about that, because that comes up as a bit of a massive like headbutt for people, that they just cannot. There's a real variation.
It's very controversial, right? And working with primary schools and early years is something that I am hoping to get more involved in, from a parental aspect more than kind of a child aspect, to be able to offer families that might have young people coming to them and saying, you know, this isn't my gender, this is my gender, to be able to give them a kind of family outreach for it. So that is something that I am kind of investing a bit of time into. However, from my kind of outlook on it, with my expertise and my knowledge, I think when you're talking about primary school children that are coming and saying, this isn't my gender, or, you know, I've been told stories and read articles, you know, that instead of saying, oh, this isn't my gender, it's, this isn't my name, so why are you calling me this name when my name's this, you know? And I think when it comes in like dribs and drabs, and then it's clothing, so I don't want to wear that dress, I want to wear those trousers, I don't want my hair long, I want it cut short. And I think from that kind of look on it, I think parents with younger children that are trying to express themselves early, I think give yourself the time and the patience to allow it to happen to an extent. And when I say to an extent, I think it's allowing them to wear the clothes that they feel comfortable to wear. You know, if, say for instance, you know, there's a family that I follow on TikTok, and they have a young person who is predominantly identifying within the female energy, and, you know, were assigned male at birth. And the way that they navigate it is it's very gentle, it's very it's very smooth in the way that they kind of navigate it. Because if, say for instance, this young person comes to them and says, you know, mum, dad, I don't want to wear trousers today, I want to wear a dress, they just allow that expression, they allow that gender expression to come through them. And I think that is a really strong mindset to have as a parent, having a young person that doesn't want to wear what they would deem them to wear, they want to wear something that's complete opposite. And as well, you know, with their child, with their development kind of going on, within that period of time, and them kind of absorbing all information from all different angles, and and kind of observing people's behaviors and observing how people kind of conduct themselves, through body language, through communication, all that sort of information, that intel that's coming through to them. There has to be a level of retainment that young person is feeling from what they are observing. Does that make sense? So it's kind of, if they are picking up on more masculine energy and more masculine behaviors, let's say, and they feel that resonates with them, and they feel like, yeah, that's how I feel in my body. And because let's face it, like, we are all energy, like, we are just humans of energy, and even though they might be 3 or 4 or 5 years old, they are still that energy, so they're going to pick up on all these different energies. And I think it is important that we, as humans of that, and being able to interact with a young person positively, and allow it, not making it so much of a detriment on them. It's just allowing things to happen. It might be as simple as, oh, I don't want to play with that skateboard, I want to play with the doll, and I want to make, I want to play with the tea set, or whatever it might be. I think it's just being open to that, because if you think about it, that doesn't make much of an impact to us as adults, but to that young person, to that child, it's going to make a massive impact to them, because they're not going to fully understand why won't my parents let me play with that doll? Why won't my parents let me wear my trousers? Because they are still kind of understanding it, but there's something going on internally that is making them feel like that. Yeah. And it's being super sensitive and gentle with it. And I know from a parent aspect, it's going to be like, right, and it's immediately jumping on the defensive, and panic city. But it's just like,
I think a lot of that comes from the fear of judgment from other people, though. Like, as well, with children that are that young, there's already a lot of parenting pressures to be getting it right, and if you've got your child who wants to go to school and be in the opposite school uniform and be talked to, addressed by a different name, and that process, you might be happy with that yourself, to kind of roll with that and let them do that, but you're definitely going to be coming up against people who don't agree with you doing that, and that's really difficult when you are trying to already process that yourself, to then have to feel like you're going to be, you basically know you're setting yourself up for a life of being fully in defensive mode, because there are too many narrow-minded people. So I think that sometimes it can be a bit of resistance just because of the judgment around.
And what I'll say to you right now, and I'll say to the audience, and I'm going to be super blunt about it, it's not your fucking problem, it is their problem. And that makes you no less of a parent, no less of a human being for meeting your child's needs. Because they are the priority, not the people stood in the playground looking at you and making judgment, or giving you abuse, or whatever it might be. It is the happiness of that young person that is living with you, or is your birth child, or whatever it might be. That is your priority. So if people are going to give you shit, then it's their fucking problem. And I'm putting it very, very bluntly, because that I truly do believe it.
It is, and I 100% understand what you're saying, and agree. And I agree with what you're saying. I think it's really hard dealing with something that other people don't understand, and trying to just shield that, really. I mean, this then again goes into the education that's going on in schools and things like that. If you've got a school that's really happy to support you as a family and do that, that's going to make that a lot easier. If you've got a school that are resistant to that, your child spends a lot of time there and whatever. So there's
in my area at the minute, there's a primary school. It's actually my old primary school. So they are basically connected now with something called the Rainbow Flag Award, and it's basically like a charitable organisation
Yeah.
that works in partnerships with schools, high schools, primary schools, colleges, all that sort of stuff, all educational provisions, and they deliver and they promote within the school the LGBTQIA plus community, and that award can be attached onto your school if you are showing that you are actively meeting the criteria of
Yeah.
this community, that you are making it a more inclusive way
Yes.
of for the young people. So, and it's not just a tick box exercise, it's what you are physically doing, what you are
Yeah.
actively doing to do that. So I know that in the school that they are, instead of it reading book, they're reading books not just so there's mum and dad, there's two mummies and there's two daddies, and there's another book that they were reading about like siblings, and instead of it being brother and sister, it was siblings. These are our siblings, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what they are actively doing to bring in this inclusive language from
Yeah.
an early age. Now, that to me is more than what is needed, and it should be, and it's working with the parents, working with families,
Yeah.
for them to be given the information and be told, that this is what is happening.
Yeah.
There's parents here that are two mums. There are parents here that are two dads. It. This is the world. This is
Yeah.
how people are living their authentic lives.
Yeah.
And it comes down to training. It comes down to people being able to get that knowledge.
Where's a good place, Alex, to get, like you said earlier that you'd given your mum some books to read?
Uh-huh.
Where do you recommend? Where do you recommend people go who are supporting somebody that's going through this self-discovery space, like so that they
Um,
can learn?
So what I'll do is I'll give you a book store that's online. It's based in Manchester, but you can order them online. You can get them delivered and stuff. It's called Queerlit.
Yeah.
Queerlit.co.uk. And their bookstore, it's an independent bookstore. It's, like I say, it's based in Manchester, and they offer a range of books around the LGBTQIA plus
Yeah.
community for parents, for young children. They've
Yeah.
got the young children's books in there. They go and donate all the queer books to schools in the area, so then they can use that. But I've got about 3 or 4 books from that bookstore, just about how I navigate myself, how I can help other people navigate themselves. So there's a range of them. There's some queer writers. So you've got like Juno Dawson, who is absolutely awesome. She's just amazing, and some of the books that she has written is the very like teenage friendly.
Nice.
So they're good books to kind of read for a young person or
Yeah.
even for a parent. I read the book and I found it useful.
Yeah.
So it's good for parents or adults to read if you just kind of want some insight on
Yeah.
things. And Jamie Windust as well. They are a non-binary author, and they've written a book called In Their Shoes. Best book I've ever read. It's all about their life and how they have navigated themselves,
Yeah.
being a non-binary person. So there's loads and loads of books out there now that you can get, absolutely millions, that will resonate in one way or another.
Yeah, and I think like this is a subject, because one, it's massive, and two, it's like emotional, a lot
Yeah,
of emotional investment in there. I think like I would just not overthink it. I think you just need to if you're going to go and look for a book, get on that website and just go where I just believe the universe will take you to what you need. So just go
yeah,
with how you feel towards
yeah,
it. Start
yeah.
somewhere. Don't feel like you've got
If
to go in.
if you need to read, like obviously with the books, I know like from a financial aspect, I know it can be quite that some of them can be quite pricey.
Yeah.
So even if you wanted to just have a look on websites, you can try Mermaid UK.
Yeah.
They work with young people who are trans or non-binary. There is lots of advice and support on their websites. You've got like Stonewall, which obviously is a massive LGBTQ foundation. And then there's one which is called Spectrum Outfitters. You can buy like trans non-binary wear on that website.
Yeah.
However, there are also sections on there for parents being able to kind of navigate if a young person comes
Yeah.
to them and asks if they can buy, non-binary or trans wear.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 3 good websites that you can have a route around if you do need any information.
Something that somebody said, I don't know if I saw it on like might be just on a social media post or something I was looking at anyway, that really struck a big, to get like quite a blow. You go, wow, that's powerful. Somebody had said that, like, if you're in, you've talked a lot about energy and that kind of realm of things, and so if you believe that we are like just souls that basically come here to deal with the next bit that we've got to learn about before we, which obviously, I mean, that's controversial in itself, wasn't there? But I read a thing that our children are like on their own soul journey, so they're here because they've got a point and a purpose, and whatever that may be. And actually, our job as their parents is to facilitate. Well, not even to facilitate; it's basically to be. We're just here to be part of their this journey for them.
Yeah.
It's not our job to like decide what they do and decide who they are and stuff. And I thought that really for me was quite interesting because it kind of made me take a bit of a step back and go like, because I have my preferences on, like, for example, like how my little boy has his hair cut. Right?
Yeah.
I just like short hair. It's just
Yeah.
what I like on my little lad.
Yeah.
I actually really like shaved heads. Is actually what I would prefer. My brother's grew up with shaved heads, and so when I like to see that on him, and he wants to grow his hair longer. And for me, I'm like,
no,
all your cute little face and stuff. But even just a simple decision like, Amy, it's not your decision. Like, you've got to let him just do these things.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something as bloody stupid as his bloody haircut. Do you know what I mean? But actually, it's you can see where these things are like built into us, that this is what boys do and this is what girls do. And actually, you've got to just kind of open your mind and open your heart and let it roll. And like
gender, like the difference between like female and male, like that gender connections, or like it's always been there. Like boys have blue and girls have pink and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and I think like now we as we go through, the next however many years, I think we will step away from that. Like I say, it is just time. But I completely agree, and I think that what you have just said there of just allowing it, because it's your little baby, like you've carried them, or you've gone through a process of getting them.
Though, isn't it? It's not about me.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. It's not what they need to do on their time on Earth is not about me.
Yes,
it's about them and what they're here for.
You are just part of their journey. You are a guide. You're a person that they can rely on for them to be able to navigate their journey as clearly as what they need to be.
It is hard to kind of take a step back from it, but I think it's that for me was just something that really it was a hard hitting statement for me. So I thought I would share it as we were talking.
No, I like that very much. So I agree.
Okay, I'm just looking at what else I've got written down. So this is one. I'm actually
going to need part 2.
I'm almost out of questions. So I came across a news article a couple of weeks ago where Bette Midler, which I think was in the news because obviously Hocus Pocus is back.
Yeah.
But she had made a comment about the fact that, and I think this is just leading on really talking about language and how we use language and stuff. So she had commented that we are there are times now where people are being referred, rather than referring to somebody as a woman, they are being referred to as a person that menstruates, right? And she was really not happy about this phrase, this way of talking, and about the fact that it's okay to be a woman and be referred to as a woman, and that whilst we want to be very inclusive and open with our language and stuff like that, well, actually what we don't want to do is remove like ways that people want to identify, even if it like doesn't fall into the spectrum of LGBT. You get what I mean? What are your thoughts around that? And like, because obviously when the media put stuff out, often they just like take it and make it sound how they want to make it sound. It is a term that I've come across a lot, and I understand from a person who will be going through a trans process that they that their bodies can be in different phases because so I can understand where it comes from. But tell me about your kind of thoughts around this like, is it okay? I think, what am I trying to ask? Is it okay that we still have people be men and women and boys and girls, but then have other language that goes with it? I think is basically where I'm going with it.
So obviously just a bit of terminology. So you've got cisgender. So cisgender is somebody that refers to themselves as the assigned gender at birth. So you identify as a female, so you are cisgender. So we'll just kind of we'll run with that. So from a cisgender perspective, you're always going to have male and female. You know, you're always going to have men and women. You're always going to have boys and girls. That is, you know, because people identify as the gender assigned to at birth. It's absolutely cool, lovely. I embrace them, you know. But there are also other people that don't. They identify out of the gender binary. You know, they identify as being transgender. They identify as being non-binary. From a place of like the menstrual cycle and the menopause and all that sort of stuff, that is something, you know, that is what was connected to the female body from a biological aspect. That is a process that happens. It's like the same with hormones, you know, like estrogen is feminine and testosterone is masculine. It's all of those things that happen. However, even though that might be from a scientific perspective, it's also looking at it and going, right, okay, then so that is what their body does from a science aspect. But internally of who they are, they can't help that process. You know, you know, you can help it to a level. You can take tablets for it. Obviously, you can stop it from happening and all that sort of stuff. However, that is something that will naturally happen because that is the natural structure of the body. So I think from that aspect of it, it's still being inclusive towards it, because even though it happens biologically from a feminine body, trans people and non-binary people can still go through the menstrual and menopause, you know.
And they were talking about, I think that where it was a controversial piece of statement was, I think that she had said that if you are a person that menstruates, that you are a woman, but actually, as you've just explained, the two things, how you identify, what your body does, are two different things.
100%.
And I think that is one of the biggest issues, isn't it, that people butt their heads against with this. Well, you have these body parts, so therefore you are a male or a female. There is no in between. There is no, you're not a that is normally the argument that people come up with. But I think that
a doctor, I think, like, put it quite like shortly, like a doctor, when I was born, a doctor said to my mum, you have a female child. And you know, and that's how it goes. And you know, the the biological side of things, like the science side of things that goes on in my body and all that sort of stuff. Like, that is just that's what my body is. Like,
Not how you
there's
feel.
nothing that I can do about it, but it's not what I feel inside of my own mind, what I feel from an energy perspective, how I want to hold my body, how I want to be displayed, or I say displayed, how I want to give myself to society. That doesn't, just because I have certain aspects of a feminine body,
Yeah,
it doesn't make me a
that's
female.
what you want. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's back to the what I think is the theme through the whole of the conversation that we've had. If it's not affecting you, put your nose out. It doesn't matter.
Go away.
You don't need to keep putting labels on it all the time.
Yeah.
Let the person do what they need to do to
Yeah.
feel happy, authentic,
Exactly.
do the thing. Which is
Exactly.
basically, we need the people to just pipe down and butt out of other people's lives.
Yeah, just get out of your own way and leave
In order,
people alone.
yeah, and learn so that you can support the people who you love in a way that means that they can find this and live the life that they want to live, basically.
Everybody deserves to be seen and heard in their own unique way, without fear of discrimination, abuse, or harassment. They deserve that. That is their birthright, to feel happy and to have a meaningful life. That is their birthright, 100%. And I think we have to navigate this as a societal aspect and stop being so selfish. I'm going to put it. Stop being so selfish and let people live how they want to live, because you live how you want to live and I live how I want to live. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a positive.
Is that your mum?
This is my mother. Yes.
Hello. Just
Hi,
bringing
Mum.
food.
Oh, see, this is the cutest
Sorry
thing.
about that.
I'm not even cutting this out of the podcast because I love it that your mum's bringing you lunch. You missed me earlier, Mum, because I was just saying that I think if Alex was mine, I would just be extremely proud of them. What they're doing is wonderful, and the conversation that we've had has been amazing. You've just had to take your headphones off, haven't you? Because I've been talking into your headphones and your mum couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sending lots of love for Alex.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care. That's so cute. No one's
gets shy. Mum gets shy.
That's so cute. It's so cute. I think anyway, that was a perfect place to round off anyway, Alex, because that is the point. We need to educate ourselves more. We need to have the conversations, and we need to give people space to be where they want to be, and stop putting our feelings into somebody else's life, basically. It's nothing to do with us. So one last thing then, I didn't prep you on this, so I'll see what you come up with. It's more fun. I like to finish my podcasts with a quote from my guests about just a mantra or like an inspirational quote that they kind of really resonates with them, and one that they kind of like to share. So have you got anything in particular that you can think of that's a good quote, life mantra situation?
A quote that I use probably when I'm talking to people. I've got two. I'm going to give you two because I'm full of them. So my first one is, don't put people in boxes because there isn't enough room to dance. That is one thing that I hold myself up to, because if you are put in a box and you're quite tightly in there and it's uncomfortable and it's awkward, whereas you're not, and you've got loads of room to dance and be how you want to be. And I'm gonna say a mantra that this is I can do hard things. So this is something that I hold very close to my heart, because my life coach told me this quote, and it has helped me through a lot of hard things. And by saying it to myself, I can do hard things, then you can do hard things. So if anybody needs to use that, please do, because it's a very powerful mantra.
I think they're both of them are fabulous, and also not surprising. That's the kind of thing I would have expected you to say, because your mindset and your approach to all of this, and how you have turned something that has been quite difficult for you to navigate personally. And this is what I was totally in awe when I was talking to Tommy as well, because you both really acknowledge the fact that people are going through these journeys and they're not able to verbalize it, to talk about it, to answer the difficult questions. They're not ready for that. They don't want to do that. And having people be a voice for those people who can't or aren't ready to do that is really, really important. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, wish you every success with what you are trying to do.
Thank you so much.
It's really important. So the Beauty Rebellion will be very much behind you, and I hope that our paths continue to cross, because I do really mean that, Alex. I think what you're doing is just amazing. So keep it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me this space to be able to share my message with everyone. Yes.
As always, Girl Talk has been the best talk. If you have enjoyed the episode, then please take a second to rate and review it for me. But most importantly, share it. Share it on your socials and share it in your conversations. Make sure you send your clients to the online directory for the signposting and support that they might need. It's time to redefine beauty, so stay fabulous, kick ass, and be proud of every single inch of you. Until next week, lots of love.